Michael McConnell, co-lead of Private Capital. What is the Private Capital team? We are the fund side of the organisation, and what that means is we work directly with the fund in placing individuals into the private equity businesses, whether that be across investments, investor relations, fundraising and distribution, fund finance, and also operating partners to cause value creation at the fund level. I was in recruitment for sort of 9 years prior to joining the business across 3 different recruitment businesses. I mean, I actually knew a couple of people that were at the business previously. Just hearing sort of their story about not only kind of the culture, which, you know, is obviously a massive factor, but equally about the job progression, the genuine earning potential, and equally just how everyone was like pushing the needle in terms of what they were doing was the most attractive thing for me. I think what surprised me most about after joining was actually sort of the first half year presentation, where I was only 2 weeks in, and just how kind of high caliber the performance was. You know, my previous business, 500,000 was deemed sort of top of the tree, whereas actually, you know, what surprised me was actually 500,000 didn't even get you in the top 15 at this business. And so the high performance was the thing that probably sort of shocked me the most. I think one of the things that was refreshing was that I came in with a business plan, an idea, and was allowed to really run with it. And that's continued throughout my whole time in the business. I think in addition to that, it's also been around, you know, the fact that if you put a plan together and have real conviction, you'll have the backing of the organisation to go out and get after that. I think what's motivated me best to perform well here has been, you know, genuinely being around other people who are at the top of their game. And naturally, having come from a sporting environment way back when, you know, that is something that always kicked me on previously. So mirroring that in this environment has been the one thing that has kind of really pushed me on to ensure that I'm right at the top of the tree. I think probably, you know, believe in yourself. All the tools here and sort of platform are available, but actually a lot of it is about your own self kind of conviction in what you do. So really go for it and, you know, give 120% as best you can. And no doubt in this environment, you know, you'll be successful. I think it sounds corny, but when I had the first sort of end of year presentation and saw people in the top 10, top 15, I kind of made my own mental goal to achieve that by the end of the following year. Thankfully, I just scraped in at 15, but nonetheless was in that top sort of quartile, and that was something that, you know, I'm pretty proud of. I think the advice that I'd give would be that actually, look, if you've got the mechanics nailed down in the job, you'll be able to pick this up, no problem. It isn't rocket science. However, it does require application. And so I think what I would say there is you have to be prepared to get into the nitty gritty, to put in the extra yards because you haven't been immersed in that environment previously before. But we've got countless stories, myself included, of people transferring from different markets and really kicking on and being a success. I think what private equity recruitment gives you versus other sectors, and I've worked in sort of 3 others now, is the fact that the individuals that you're working with, the businesses you're working with, the private equity firms that you're working with, they all want to be successful and want the fastest route for that success. So therefore, you know, it means that expediting sort of interview processes, it means going the extra mile to get things done and get it over the line is very much the DNA of private equity. And I think that mirrors, you know, extremely well with recruitment. Whereas other industries, you know, that you could recruit into don't necessarily always get that. So I think that's why, you know, both recruitment and private equity marry up quite nicely together. How would I describe the culture at Finatal? This is a funny one because I saw the business sort of back in 2017, and I think had a view of the organisation as being quite sort of elbows out and aggressive, but was massively surprised about sort of the consultative nature of the organization, the nurturing nature of the organization, and actually the fact that people genuinely do care here, right from day one of a grad joining and ensuring that they're having a good time. Often it's their first job out of university, all the way through to experienced consultants. Sometimes coming in with experience is a bit of a target on your back, and I've seen the business nurture those individuals and get them into and embedded into the culture of the organization, which I think has been great. I think I'd recommend Finatal to other individuals that are looking with experience in the market on the basis that I probably was a little bit skeptical of the organization from knowing it historically. But actually, if you're someone that wants to be successful, wants a platform to leverage off, I'm a prime example of an individual that's done that. Within 2 years, have been promoted within the organization, now on track for sort of management towards sort of directorship. And so for me, it ticked all of the boxes that I think were missing in my previous organizations, which were opportunity, the ability to move upwards, earning potential. And so for all of those reasons, I think that's the reason why to pick Finatal. What do I do throughout my day? Well, look, I think it's very varied. From candidate sourcing, now in my new role as a sort of a manager, managing individuals and getting them up and running, through to business development, client meetings, whether that be virtual, in person. Kind of it's the full gambit here. What we pride ourselves on is that every individual, right from sort of grad through to the CEO, is happy to get their hands in on all parts of it, and no one is too good for any job. And I think actually, for me, that sort of is a foundation for the business. 3 words. I'd say collaborative, competitive, and I'd say ultimately fun. As corny as that sounds.